Gordhan sought to address the reforms underway at key SOEs in the country, and he acknowledged that despite almost 30 years of democracy, that South Africa was still in a process of building its state capacity.
We are well on the way to reform, but in also undertaking reform, we recognize that there needs to be transformation as well. Because for every one of these entities, the markets in which they operate, the industries in which they exist, are undergoing formidable changes, whether it's the logistics industry or the energy industry, the impact of the just energy transition, and the obligations that it imposes on South Africans, but indeed other parts of the world as well.
He sought to explain in some detail the changes underway at Eskom to create 3 distinct entities for generation, transmission and distribution.
What is going to happen next once we have a board in place is that the board will call for proposals for the actual construction of one or other part of the 14,000 kilometers of transmission lines that need to be put in place so that where we have the best of the natural assets in the form of sun in the Northern Cape, for example, or where we have wind assets from nature, that there's a grid available to connect the energy generated there to the national grid as well. So I think before the end of the year, we might see some interesting appetizers for those who are interested in this particular area. At least some bankers are smiling, so it's a good sign.
The Public Enterprises Minister also addressed the wholesale changes that are underway at Transnet, the country's rail, port and pipeline company, which too fell victim to state capture, but showcased here as an investment opportunity.
A recovery plan for Transnet to begin to get it to move in the right kind of direction. That'll be socialized with all sorts of stakeholders as well. And it'll create all sorts of opportunities for ensuring that the private sector could become either partners or in some way contribute in various parts of Transnet. So firstly, if we take the Transnet National Ports Authority, it has a program over the next 10 years of some 100 billion rands of investments. If I give you a concrete example, Durban Harbour is still the busiest port on the African continent. Its volumes have declined, but the ships that today carry containers are huge, and the Durban Harbour is unable to accommodate those. So one of the key projects that the Ports Authority is managing is the deepening of the harbour and the extension of the pier where these large ships can actually enter.
In South Africa.
As government and the South African private sector collaborate in an effort to shift the country's low growth trajectory, at an event sponsored by Old Mutual, UBS, Standard Bank and the JSE.
There is now momentum in dealing with the structural reforms necessary for South Africa to become more competitive. The best example, of course, is the list of activities as summarized in the latest report on Operation Vulindlela, on visas, on the electricity deficit we're speaking about, on logistics, on the water sector, on tourism. And so my point to you is, since we spoke, there's great momentum, and long may it last.
That spirit of cooperation is now well entrenched and starting to bear fruit. We are sometimes criticized as a country that is great at making plans, but extremely poor at implementing them. We're upending that notion, and over the next two days, you'll hear exactly how we intend to do that.
The conference will hear from the Ministers of Finance and Electricity on Friday, in addition to a keynote on monetary policy by Reserve Bank Governor Lesetja Kganyago. Shervin Bryce, SABC News, New York.